my beautiful creatures. I am Daisy Victoria, and I like to design fantasy clothing and costumes. Today we're gonna make a pumpkin spice dress, or at least we're going to get started on it. It's rather late in the day because I actually did a lot more other work today first, and we are definitely not gonna finish it today, but we will start it this evening. I decided to do this dress because I didn't really have like a themed Halloween costume this year. I did do like an 1890s Frozen costume with some fall leaves, and that was pretty cool, like kind of fall themed, you know, because Gale is like fall colored leaves. I did do the historical Halloween collab challenge, but I didn't pick like a costume that was like Halloween festive, and I was kind of missing out because I actually really like to do that kind of thing. So I am making this dress right before Halloween, which means you guys aren't going to see the video till after Halloween, but it's fine. We'll all live. I designed this dress inspired by pumpkins, and I thought, oh, maybe it can be a pumpkin spice latte. And it's a lot of like Victorian kind of almost steampunk influence. I really like the whole like corset look and the skirt. I really like this longer in the back and shorter in the front look. And I like this kind of puffed sleeve shrug idea and a pumpkin hat. And I actually found a pumpkin I'm going to use for that. I'll show you. So I got this striped orange fabric, and this is the fabric I'm using to line it. It actually was a little bit brighter, but I dyed it darker using some brown dye, and this, which was mostly cotton, it was a cotton poly blend, took the dye rather well. This one didn't take it very well at all, which is why it's now brighter, but that's fine because I don't mind the lining being a little bit darker. I also got a pumpkin to use in the hat, and I'm very excited about that actually. It's like a sparkle pumpkin. I love it. So I am using horsehair braid in the skirt, and let me actually catch you up to where I'm at. So I cut out the skirt using a standard pattern that I always use, and it's extremely large. There's so much fabric here, but this is the outer layer and this is the lining. And what I've done is I've already sewn the vertical seams together. So now I actually have to put them together into like one piece. And I'm going to use the horsehair braid around the hem, because that will make it stand out and be really nice and billowy. And then I'll attach the waistband and decorate it after that. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try something that I haven't tried ever before. So I have actually started using horsehair recently, which is sad to say. I've been sewing like most all my life, and I didn't use horsehair before like a couple years ago, and it's basically changed my entire life. So usually when I attach horsehair, I attach it to basically so it's on the back side of the skirt, and this time I'm going to attach it so that it's sandwiched between the layers of, you know, the outer fabric and the lining. So I looked up a little bit of information online just to kind of see what that looks like. Usually when I try to learn something new, I just kind of look at some finished garments and see like how I think they went together and try to see what I can come up with, as opposed to following a specific set of directions. I'm that sort of renegade experimental sewer, and it's gotten me quite far. So actually, yeah, it pays off to be a renegade experimental sewer. So basically I've been just like sitting here messing with this and trying to see like how it's gonna work out to attach this horsehair and then have it such that, you know, it's in between, and I want the seams to be sewn only onto the lining and not the outer fabric at all. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna sew them together so that they're, you know, stitched like that's the bottom edge. And then after I stitch them together, then I'm going to sew the horsehair just onto the inner side of the lining. And then I'm going to continue with the skirt, and we're going to see how that goes. I actually think that it's going to go quite well because it makes physical sense. And after all, sewing is actually physics, you know, it's all math and science. That's what runs the world. All right, let's try this out. All right, I have now sewn in the horsehair into the hem of the skirt. So it's looking really good. It's very clean on the front side, and then it's got the seams on the lining only. So I did take pictures along the way, which I'll put up on Patreon so you guys can see in more detail kind of what all I did. Basically, the horsehair is just stitched onto the lining and works out quite well. And I've got some trims that I'm going to add to the skirt. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is actually just kind of set this aside and start working on the Shrug Jacket and the corset so I can start putting things together before I add the trims, because I want to be a little creative about the placement of them, like on the outfit as a whole. And I need to do that before I actually finish off the waistband and everything on the skirt, because I want to be able to sew it just to the outer layer. So what I'm going to do is start getting creative with design work after I, go through the initial construction of the other pieces of this gown. I've now cut out the Shrug Jacket portion of the project. I have very wide and tall sleeves because they're going to be puffy. And this is all going to be lined. It's kind of a thin lining, but it's a little something to just make it more substantial. And then this is the body pieces and the collar and cuffs up here. So I'm going to sew that together and create the base of the Shrug Jacket. The skirt is sewn here, and I need to make a decision on what trim I'm going to put around the bottom here. I may use a black, I may use an off-white. I actually really like the black. So I don't have enough of this trim. I would have to get new trim, but I like the way the black looks in contrast. On the other hand, if I do want to actually embody this whole pumpkin spice latte thing, then the white is probably a good idea because that's like the froth on the latte. Stick around to see which one I choose. Will I choose the white or will I choose the black? Remains to be seen, friends. All right, it's the next day and we are back to work. I actually did sew the shrug off camera, so I'm going to show you what that jacket looks like now. Ta-da! So this sewing is pretty simple, I guess, in my opinion. It's just sewing together a pattern that I've used many times, and that's why it's simple for me. So I'm going to instead focus on kind of what the interesting aspects are and the design and embellishment work for this video. And I'll update you on what else I did too. So this is the jacket. It's got a little clasp here to hook the front. And there's a little bit of overlap there so that you don't get gapping. Don't know if I can do it one-handed. Oh, I did. Score. So the sleeves are quite puffy, and I did actually make them puffier than the pattern I used. The pattern is one that I drafted myself as well. I've used it over the years. And okay, for the sleeves, so I have really puny arms. I'm a tiny person and my arms are tiny as well as the rest of me, but I want this to be able to fit multiple people, so that way I can use it for photo shoots and stuff like that in the future. So what I did was, instead of attaching the arm cuffs entirely, I put a buttonhole on each side, and then I can thread a ribbon through and tie it, so that way if someone is as small as me, it can go all the way closed. If they're not, it doesn't matter. It'll still fit them. Within, a certain range, this will fit many people, and I think that's super cool. And that's something that's important to think about when you are a specific size and you want to maybe share your costumes with other people. I actually brought out a dress form here. Normally my dress forms are in the other room, and I just kind of work at the kitchen table here for now, but the dress form is also here today. So we can actually put the Shrug Jacket on the dress form, or bolero jacket, shrug jacket, whichever you want to call it. And we can kind of see how it looks. I like it quite a lot. I think it's really cute. And it really has that kind of late Victorian feel with the puffed sleeves and everything. I think it's really cool. Update on the trim situation. I did in fact decide to do black trim. So just to kind of get an idea, that's kind of what it looks like against the orange. I think it really pops very well. I did have a little trouble deciding between the black and the orange, but in the end, I really thought the orange looked really good with the black. And especially, I kind of brought a mirror out and looked at it next to me to see like what it looks like with skin rather than a mannequin like cloth covering. And I really was just feeling the black. So it's gonna be black, it's gonna be very Halloween-y, and I like it. So also now that we are looking at a mannequin or dress form, you can actually see the skirt. So it's shorter in the front and then longer in the back. And I will be applying trim to the hem of that. And now we come to a very interesting part of this project. So because I decided to do this kind of last minute, and it's sort of a challenge for me, can I make a Halloween costume the week of Halloween while also filming it? Because if I don't film it, I know I can do it. But if I film it, I'm like stopping, setting up shots, and also I'm taking pictures for Patreon, so like lots of stuff going on beyond just the sewing, and it's working. But in order to do that, I had to use trims that I had on hand or that I could obtain immediately. So nothing that I had to order online, with the exception of Amazon Prime, but I looked there and didn't find any better deals than what I had at my local store. So this trim, I'll show you why this is a little crazy and actually finish up the job. So there's like a lot of this trim, right? Lots and lots of it. You can see a whole pile. This actually comes as a sort of a double-sided trim, and I am cutting it apart. So I've cut apart, actually I bought 5 yards of it, so that will give me 10 yards of the individual side. So I'm taking 10 yards of this trim and cutting it all apart. And I'm right here at the end. I already did a lot of it. I was actually sitting on the floor and I just kind of knocked it all out. I'm going to finish doing this end so you guys can see how I'm cutting it apart. And if you ever use like any lace fabric and make trim out of that, it's quite similar. So, you can be as precise as you want cutting it out depending on what your project needs from you. And if you need more precision later, you can always go back and make it more precise. I am just cutting. So that's one side now totally free. And then once I cut one side off, the other side you can see still has some of this mesh around it because of the way the lace was made. So I just go in and cut that off from the other side. So here is the skirt, and it's gonna go along the edge of the skirt like that. I'm also going to use it on the corset, which I haven't made yet, you'll notice. Yeah, I got a lot of work to do in a little amount of time here, no big deal. Here is the start of the corset. So this is just the center front panels I'm gonna sew together. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew the corset panels together, and that's gonna be my main task for today. There comes a time in corset making when things get a little bit monotonous. So you're just sewing like a lot of panels together, and eventually it's like, I need a break. And that's about where I am at right now. I've got a bunch of the panels sewn and a bunch of the boning channels also sewn in here. And yeah, I'm excited it's gonna go on here as well. But right now it's break time, so I'm actually going to get some lunch. Here's a little secret. When you are getting to the point where you're kind of bored and you're not really like working as quickly, you can still push through to get through it. But like, I find that usually if I just take a break for a little bit and then come back, I work a lot faster and it's more efficient in the end. And sometimes I need to take a break anyway, like I do need to eat lunch, So I am gonna do that for the sake of efficiency, and then I'm gonna finish my corset. So right here we have the whole body of the corset. It is an orange striped corset. So at this point, I'm just gonna finish up the corset. I need to put bias binding on the edges and actually insert the boning, do the grommets, and I'm going to put a modesty panel on the back, which is basically a piece of fabric that covers the opening between where the grommets go. So that way it'll still look like a solid garment going across there. And then it's time for embellishments, because that's really where this costume is going to shine. Literally, because I'm going to attach rhinestones. I've got black grommets along the edge because I'm going to be using a lot of black. It's actually lined in black too. So I've put the bias binding on the top and the bottom edges of the corset. And then there's lots of boning in here, mostly spiral steels, and then flat steels at the back here surrounding the grommets. And you can put two grommets closer together in the center of the corset where you have the little bunny ears that you tie. You don't have to do that. I've done plenty of them where they're all equally spaced. I just thought I'd do that on this one. So now I need to add trim. So I am going to put that on the corset and on the skirt. So what I'm gonna do, because it's very late actually right now, I ended up running some errands and then actually not feeling so well for a little while. Had a headache that kind of impeded my progress, but I am back at it now. So what I'm gonna do is try to put as much of this lace on the skirt as I can, or at least I'm gonna pin it on. And then hopefully tomorrow I won't have all that crazy of a schedule of work to do. So just looking at the sketch again, you can see I'm coming along. I've got stuff sewn together, just not embellished. And that's pretty good. Like, that's a good place to be at. Embellishments do tend to take a lot of time. I mean, not only all this trim, but I'm gonna add rhinestones and stuff. And I do technically need to finish the waistband of the skirt. The reason I haven't done that yet is because I'm going to put the lace on just the front of the skirt, like just the outer layer. So I'll need to attach that before I actually finish off the waistband. And I think you'll see as I do that. And it's the next day. We are back. I did not get as much done yesterday as I'd wanted. I actually got delayed a little bit by not feeling so well. I'm taking some antibiotics this week, and I'm pretty sure that was the culprit, but it happens. It's okay. That's why I don't work down to the last minute on my actual plan of when to get things done, because you really never know what's gonna happen. This is the skirt. It has a lot of black lace trim on it now. There's more than 40 of these points. I wanna say there's 43. There's 43 points. There's quite a lot of that. I sewed it all on by machine, and what I did was I actually sewed the bottom edge first, so it was all like stuck down, and then I sewed the top edge, so I sewed like straight across and then, you know, up to the point and down on the other side, and then across the next one, up to the next point, down on the other side, and repeated that all the way along the skirt. It took a long time, but honestly, sewing it by hand takes even longer, so I'm really happy that I was able to do it by machine this time. And those are sewn only to the front layer. Every time I make a costume for myself, I find that what really makes it special for me is when I get to try one new thing, at least one new thing, maybe even more in each costume. So for this one, I tried separating the 2 layers with the horsehair trim, because so far I've just done it on 1 layer or used the 2 layers as a single layer. And it was really successful, and I'm excited to try it and get even better at it on future projects. So that means the skirt is ready for a waistband. So I need to just basically attach that to the skirt. The back needs to be hemmed. So there's an opening where you can actually put the skirt on, and I need to hem that. And I may actually do what I did on the bodice. So one thing I do on skirts frequently when I want more than one person to be able to wear it is I actually put a buttonhole on either side of the waistband, and then I can thread a ribbon through there. And then the issue of this hole obviously is a bigger deal on a skirt than a sleeve, which is why the sleeve was easier. So in a skirt, I can either put a modesty panel behind it, or sometimes it doesn't show at all, depending on the layers and how things lay over each other. So I am gonna go ahead and do that, because remember, I do want this costume to be able to be worn by models so I can use it at photo shoots. And as we all know, not everyone is the same size. So those are just a little bit of my solutions to make everything work. For the corset, I've actually attached this like braid ribbon trim thing here, and I'm making a faux front lacing. So to do that, I've actually left parts of it unsewn so that I can thread a ribbon through it. I'm using a double-sided satin ribbon, so that way it doesn't matter which side is facing up, both sides of them are that nice satin. And I'm just pulling it through. So I left the pins in until I am putting the ribbon in, because I don't want to go hunting for where those spots are, right? I just want to know where they are. And then I'm just threading that ribbon through those open spots in the trim that I used. And then I get this nice fake lace up front detail on the corset. And the reason I did that first before doing the rest of the embellishments, other than just wanting to, I guess, is that these edges are raw. So I could have done that before I even did the bias binding, but I know that I'm gonna put some trim on the upper and lower edges of the corset. So I actually did that now, and then the trim is going to cover where those edges are. So here we have it, and then this needs a little bit more slack up there, but you know, basically it's in. So that's pretty awesome. I'm excited to have things coming along. I may want to put this on before I put the ribbon in, so you know, I may have to take it out and redo it, but I'm gonna sew the trim on by hand anyway, so probably it's not really an issue. As much as I'd love to sew this on by machine, I might be able to sew that upper edge by machine, but there's no way I can sew this by machine because I would be sewing over boning, and that's just not something you can really do. So I'm gonna attach this, and let me show you what I did already on the Shrug Jacket or Bolero jacket. I sewed this other trim around the collar, and I also attached it to the sleeve cuffs. I forgot to tell you, I actually attached the waistband. So here it is. And in the back, I've just tied a ribbon through those two buttonholes. So that's basically how that works. I know this was used in historical costuming as well, and it's like a theater trick, you know, whenever you got to make costumes to fit multiple people. So I'm gonna get back to work on this corset, and then finally I'll be able to make the hat. And I'm gonna attach rhinestones also into the lace and everything, so that is yet to go. Well, today is turning out to be quite a day in terms of getting stuff done, like embellishments, handwork. I've been trying to sew as much on the machine as possible because I am trying to finish this today, and there's a certain limit to how much hand sewing I can do in a day. Normally I will make hand sewing projects last a little bit longer so I can spread them out, but I don't have that with this one because I chose to make it a last minute project. I'm also fighting a little bit of physical effects. I'm on an antibiotic this week, and last night my sewing time got cut really short because I got like a massive headache, and it turns out the symptoms I was having are known symptoms of the antibiotic, so I have a sneaky suspicion that's what caused it. But anyways, I just know that I may be slowed down later on today as well. So I've been trying to finish as much as I can early on as possible. In fact, I actually sewed the rest of the trim onto the skirt before I even had my coffee this morning. Like, I started the coffee brewing and just sat down at the machine and sewed. And that's kind of the way today has been. I've been giving myself breaks along the way because that's just something I need right now at this particular time of this year. I need a lot of breaks. So now I have attached all the trim to the corset. So the top edge and the bottom here, you know, the edge that's attached to the bias binding, I was able to sew that on the machine. So that's really good. That saves me a little bit of hand work availability, we'll say. I did have to sew everything else down by hand because I can't sew over boning in the machine, obviously, because it's steel. So I sewed down the rest of it just now. And that's really, really good news because this means all the trim is applied that I need. And that means that it's really time to do rhinestoning. And I also have to lace up this corset in the back. I feel like I've showed you guys how I lace corsets like a bunch of times, and I even have a video on how to install laces into a corset, which I will link for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that off camera this time, and then I'm gonna put this on my mannequin and we're gonna see how everything looks. What I'm planning to do with the rhinestones is to apply a bunch of them throughout the trims. So even though it's not a beaded or embellished trim, it's just a fancy lace trim. It'll get some rhinestones added. And then I'm planning to add some inside the corset as well. So when I put the lace on, I ended up having to take this ribbon out of the upper two spots and also the lower two spots I'd left for it. So basically I just need to pull this down so that it's taut and then, yeah, lace up the corset, and I got a corset and all the pieces are sewn, which is really, really good. I still need to make the headpiece as well, so I will check back in real soon. We are back and I am attaching rhinestones. I decided to do the skirt first. That's the biggest thing, and once I get that knocked out, I can go to the finer and more precise areas of the corset and the jacket. I'm using gem tack to attach these rhinestones. I normally use E6000, but I do like how gem tack is non-toxic, so I want to try that out and see if I can get that to work for me this time. So basically I am attaching a dab of the glue to wherever I want each rhinestone, and then I am going back and putting in the rhinestone with some little tweezers. Honestly, I could put more rhinestones in here than what I am using, but I think that the amount I'm doing is enough to give it a good little amount of sparkle, and I think it'll be really nice. If I want to attach more later, I can always go back through, but honestly, I feel like with how shiny the fabric is to begin with, I really don't need like tons of rhinestones. I think this amount will be fine. So this is a process that takes a really long time. I'm gonna settle in and rhinestone for a while. Welcome back. It is now the next day, and I did in fact finish my costume last night. There she is. So I finished attaching rhinestones all over the trims and the corset, and I also made a headpiece. Oh, I'm totally messing up her hair here. Let me fix that for you. Get that out of your face, like she's got a face. So the headpiece is a headband, and it's got felt covering the headband. There's also a comb in there because what's on top is rather heavy, so I thought that comb would help attach it to the head. And it's got like Halloween leaves and that sparkle pumpkin that I love so much. I'm really excited about this dress, and in fact today is Halloween and we are going to take some pictures so we can have our own little Halloween costume party. And I like how this is kind of like a very goth pumpkin queen look, which is perfect. Very happy with it. So let me show you where the rhinestones are. So on the lace here, I've got rhinestones. When I move it around, you can see the sparkle even if they're kind of dark. So they're equally placed on all this trim, like on the top and bottom of the corset, and also all the way around on the skirt. So all the way around to the back as well. It's all got those little rhinestones in there. And also on the jacket, I applied rhinestones throughout the trim and also on the neck. And these are all applied using gem tack. And then I also added this little pumpkin coach, like a Cinderella fairy tale charm. Thought it would be really nice to add into the look. So yeah, turns out this was a success. I could in fact put this together last minute this week, actually within like a few days. And even not being able to work the whole day each time, I was still able to manage getting it together. I really do like how everything looks in the end. Like the goth pumpkin queen thing is totally up my alley. And I feel like it's got this really nice embellished corset, which I like making. So I love making like a really well-structured corset and then adding embellishments, so it's like super fancy. And then I really like just kind of how striking everything is. I think it's really nice. So it's got a lot of influence from historical garments, but it's not, like nothing's historically accurate. So the corset is based on late Victorian corset silhouettes. The jacket, you know, you've got these big puff sleeves, which are not as big as like some of the late Victorian sleeves, but you still have that kind of influence coming through, which I really like. I feel like this has that kind of old-timey but not historically accurate aesthetic to it, which is something I really like. All right, so I'll show you some more of the details and also something extra special I got. And then we're gonna go take some photos. I got this cat. It's the Target cat pillow that I was seeing. I actually got my hands on one and I'm gonna take it with me to the photo shoot because how cool will that be? There's so many good parts of this costume. My favorite part, I think, is all the rhinestones because I love the sparkle that it adds. I'm kind of a sparkle person. But I mean, I don't know, this Halloween cat that I got is also pretty good. What about you guys? What's your favorite part of what I've put together here? Let me know in the comments.
There's a monster coming up from behind you.
Thank you so much for joining me on this Goth Pumpkin Queen Halloween adventure, even though you're seeing it after Halloween. If you would like to see more, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you see everything I post here. Find me on social media. I'm Daisy Viktoria. My website is daisyviktoria.com. And I also have a Patreon where I put out extra stuff for you guys, like extra pictures, extra tips and tricks, and some insight onto some things that I'm making. And that really helps me out. It also really helps me out if you leave a comment and like the video. So if you did like it, please be sure to do that. And I hope you guys had a fantastic spooky season, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye. So
I love you.
I love you too.
Gotta pull the shoes up.